Hello everyone, my name is Marin Guevara, and as usual, a huge thank you to anyone who is a subscriber, old subscriber, new subscriber, and who is returning, and a thank you to anyone who is just clicking on this video or checking out the channel. Today I'll be doing one of these review discussion videos I like doing so much, and it's for a book that I have read recently that I really enjoyed, and I just don't see any videos talking about it here on BookTube. And that book here is Engine Summer by John Crowley. Engine Summer is a science fiction novel that was published in 1979. It is post-apocalyptic. However, in many respects, it did read like a fantasy to me. And I don't really know anyone else who has read this book. So hopefully this video may reach out to other individuals who have read Engine Summer and would like to discuss it. The comment section is always open for discussions. And I hope that this video also may inspire you to check out Engine Summer, to see if this is a book that is for you. As I mentioned, Engine Summer is post-apocalyptic. This does take place centuries after this cataclysmic event called the Storm occurred. And we're following a young man named Rush That Speaks, who lives in this small community called Little Bel Air. Little Bel Air is a pretty quaint, sort of idyllic type of environment. They don't know any war, they don't know any hunger, any sickness. However, one day, Rush That Speaks decides to go out on this pilgrimage. He leaves his home that he's always lived in, and he journeys outside, basically amongst the ruins of human civilization. And what he discovers will change his life. So one of the major aspects of Engine Summer, I would say, is storytelling, the importance of storytelling. Storytelling is such a major part of the culture within Little Bel Air. In fact, the people of this community describe themselves as truthful speakers. As you can tell from the name, truthful speaking is just a manner of conversing where it's perfectly open, it's transparent, there is no room for any deception whatsoever. And perhaps you can point to that as one of the reasons why life is idyllic in Little Bel Air. There is no sense of conflict because everyone, in a sense, is a truthful speaker. Another thing that the people of Little Bel Air love to do is tell the stories of saints. So these are individuals from centuries long past whose lives have been passed down through, oral tradition. And I really like the discussion that Rush That Speaks has with an elder of the community about the importance of these stories. That storytelling isn't necessarily about an individual, but it's a communal act that gathers so many individuals, so many lives together. There's this great passage talking about the saints and, the whole point of storytelling within Little Bel Air. A life, she said, folding her hands and regarding the first slide of the system, which shown on our wall, is circumstances. Circumstances are encirclings. They're circles. The circle of a saint's life, all its circumstances, is contained in the story of his life as he tells it. And the story of his life is contained in our remembering it. The story of his life is a circumstance in ours. So the circle of his life is contained in the circle of our lives, like circles of ripples rising in water. Now, I know that's a lot of talk about circles and lives, but I think it reinforces the fact that storytelling is not an activity that takes place in, it's not static. It is not within a vacuum. Storytelling touches the lives of people who hear it. And the thing is, it will just keep on spreading over and over again, especially when you have other people reiterating that story, passing on that story. I'll also read to you a passage that focuses on the saints and sort of summarizes why the people of Little Bel Air put a lot of significance on the stories of the saints, not for the individual lives per se, but how they can be applicable to the human condition, how we can see our own experiences sort of reflected in these other people's lives. So it says here, "It's like the saints," I said, "because they made their lives transparent, like the slides, and their lives can be placed before our own, and are remembering their stories, and reveal things to us about ourselves. Not the stories or the lives themselves, but their interpenetration." "Yes," Painted Red said. "They're saints, not because of what they did, especially, but because in the telling of it, what they did became transparent, and your own life could be seen through it, illuminated." And this discussion about storytelling, its fluidity, its vast reach, along with the importance of telling the stories of these saints, the significance that they hold for the people of Little Bel-Air, it stuck with me because I feel that, in a way, that's how we view reading books, reading fiction. Isn't it not very gratifying when we read maybe like a fantasy or a classic? We can see and experience that is similar to our own. You can have a character that is in a completely different setting, in a completely different time, existing in a completely different world, but maybe their experience, what they're going through is exactly what you're going through. And now there's this connection between the two of you. There's like this cord between you, this character, this author. You are tied together. You have these two lives tied to one another through this book. And yes, in a way, it is pretty abstract. It's a pretty abstract manner, but I would say no less real. Another aspect that stuck out to me with Ancient Summer is the sort of the tone, the atmosphere. There's almost like this acknowledgement that we are maimed and we just have to live with it. We have lost something significant and there's no going back. So here we have a passage. And what Roy thought, who saw the storm, was that from then on we would all be as he was, all legless men, whether it was the choice of childlessness or further back in the angel's decision to hammer the world into a shape convenient for men. No matter what the cost, whatever it was, we lost that terrible race. And it left us legless men. And we can laugh. We have our systems and our wisdom, but still only one leg. It doesn't get better. A lost leg, like a cold. We learn to live with it. We try. It's as if the passage implies that mankind was slowly losing his humanity even before the storm. The storm only ensured that the damage that mankind had wrought was irrevocable. Like there was no going back. And so now you have humanity centuries afterwards just having to accept the consequences, not of only the storm, but of the actions previous to it. There is that somber acceptance and this feeling of bitterness or bittersweetness, not only within the discussions that Rush That Speaks has with other individuals, but just when we are following Rush That Speaks as he's traversing the world. For instance, there are many technological advances that are just lying there, wasted. They contain secrets, but the people who would have properly appreciated or understood them are now long gone, and now what's left is there to waste away or be taken over or swallowed by the encroaching force, by nature. You get a lot of scenes of buildings, highways being slowly swallowed up by the natural world. This idea that mankind and then the lives that have lived through these creations are now disappearing, that are now being taken over. The world of Ancient Summer does not feel like a mangled continuation of the past. It feels like a new beginning, a new epoch. And whether or not you feel that it's an Eden, well, it will depend on you. As I mentioned, there is no war, there is no sickness, there is no, hunger anymore. But you can sense that there is something sort of important that is gone now. For the people of Little Bel-Air, they at least treasure storytelling. They emphasize its importance, and then they pass these stories down, through the generations. However, there is a community within this book that is sort of like the opposite. If anything, they just want to forget, and in doing so, constantly try to push out the humanity that they have left within themselves. So that is just a glimpse of the world that Rush That Speaks lives in, that he traverses through. It's a somber, bittersweet type of world, type of future. But there's also beauty to behold. There's a lot of beautiful, balmy passages that involve the natural world. Characters kind of just immersing themselves, sitting down quietly, kind of allowing the natural world to soak in. It is beautiful in that regard. Now, will this be a book for everyone? No, I don't think so. It does lean more towards the contemplative. If you're really into action, this is not going to be the book for you. Another thing is that it can be a bit dense. And let me explain. So in Little Bel Air, in the portions of Little Bel Air, we are being immersed into the lives of the community. And they use a lot of terms and phrases for concepts, ideas that we know of, but the terms and phrases can be a bit confusing to understand initially. So I think one good example is the term snake hands or snake's hands. Like, what does that mean? So in this passage it says, so when you run a long path and hear something that looks to be path, but you find it is only rooms interlocking in a little maze that has no exits but back to path, that's a snake's hand. It runs off the snake of path like a set of little fingers. It's also called a snake's hand because a snake has no hands, and likewise there is only one path. But a snake's hand is also more. My story is a path too, I hope, and so it must have its snake's hands. Sometimes the snake's hands in a story are the best part, if the story is a long one. Okay, so basically what that means in that context, your life, your entire life is what is known as like path. And snake's hands are like the little minutia in your life. So for instance, in a Wikipedia, if you look up a famous person's life, you're just going to get the basic, not the basic, but the major significant events of their lives. However, we know that a person's life is made up of minutia, about the little events that we may not deem important, but are important, that do help build the richness of our lives. So these little moments, these little minutia, that's what snake's hands are. You also have instances where pertinent information about the past and how it might have influenced the present are, passed down like legends, but because, centuries have passed, the information has been garbled. So my brain was kind of trying to cut through all of it, get to the truth. And if that's something that you might find frustrating, you might not care for this book. I found it very interesting. Another thing of note is that there are plenty of scenes that I will admit I just didn't completely understand. There are moments in this book that read like hallucinogenic trips, and you're gonna leave that passage confused. I know that I had to go back and reread some passages over and over again, trying to completely comprehend what was written. So if you're not into that, Engine Summer may not be for you. I will say though that there are answers given at the end of this book. You will not get an answer to everything, but there is an answer to, I would say, some of the major questions that are posed in Engine Summer. So it's not completely totally up in the air, but there's definitely room for like interpretation for sure. And what I also really love about the ending, and this is why I encourage people to read Engine Summer, I feel that there's a bit of sort of meta discussion with regards to, once again, storytelling and reading, particularly reading novels, reading books, and how we interact with the story and its characters. I can't really explain a lot because it would be spoiling the book, but just letting you know, I'd say that there's some nice meta discussion, meta commentary that does happen at the end. I'd say, please, once again, if you've read Engine Summer, I would love to have a discussion with you. So that is basically it. I hope you enjoyed my review / discussion on Engine Summer. This is definitely going to be a book that I'm going to revisit, and I can tell this is going to be a story that will have more to say every time I revisit it. And I think that's a good tell of how great a book is. That's how rich it is. So once again, please let me know down below in the comments, have you read Engine Summer? And if so, I would love to talk about, maybe give like a spoiler discussion, because I really do need someone to talk about this book. And I hope that I've inspired some people through my ramblings to pick this one up, because I do feel that it's quite the gem. I'm very glad that I picked this up and I gave it a go, because I did enjoy it. I hope you enjoyed my video on Engine Summer, and I will see you in the next video, whenever that will be. Bye!